Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are here with Austin from Ohio, and today is Thursday, June 16th, 2022. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at this little piece that I found earlier, and just continuing on with what I've been talking about the past couple days. Everything is basically out in the open. If you don't want to see what is going on right now, or if you cannot see it, it's because you are trying not to see it. It can't even be chalked up to just disregard anymore. It can't even be chalked up to, oh, I'm just not paying attention. Like, everything is so in your face. The food processing plants, all the cattle that just magically died in this certain area where, other places in the country it was a lot hotter and the cattle survived. But for some reason, in this certain area, a whole bunch of them died, but I'm sure that's a coincidence as well, right? Take a look at this one. And this is all part of it. You guys all know this. This is all part of the reset. This is all part of the New World Order takeover. It's just they're keeping it going because we're not offering any kind of resistance. We're not offering any kind of solutions other than what they want. And in Ohio, there's a lot of talk that because AEP comes out, which is the American Electric Power Ohio, they come out and they start telling us to start conserving energy, right? A lot of people are still without power. I think in total it was over 250,000 people from a few days ago when we had really bad storms. But there's a lot of talk now, and apparently, I have not checked this out yet, but I saw a comment on somebody else's video where AEP is apparently doing rolling blackouts like they were doing in Texas. I have not verified this for myself yet, but I plan on doing so. Top investor warns U.S. economy is going to collapse. How long have we been talking about this? Huh? How long have we been telling people about this one? There's a literal chapter in the book, COVID-19, The Great Reset by Mr. Klaus Schwab, that's called The Fate of the U.S. Dollar. That was the point of making the U.S. dollar the world reserve currency. That was the point. And people in other countries, if our dollar goes down, when it goes down, your currency's going down. That's the way that it works. It's the world reserve currency. It's set up that way on purpose. Anyway, the U.S. economy is on the verge of collapse, said a Wall Street veteran in an interview published by MarketWatch on Wednesday. Financial veteran and crypto investor Michael Novogratz, interviewed by MarketWatch before the Federal Reserve decided to increase interest rates, said the country is really heading into the likelihood of a really fast recession. More like a depression on steroids. But Novogratz is the founder and CEO of investment management firm Galaxy Digital, and is a veteran of Wall Street who has worked among many places at Goldman Sachs for 11 years. The economy is going to collapse. Well, quote, the economy is going to collapse. Straight up said it. Like, didn't even sugarcoat it. He told MarketWatch, we're going to go into a really fast recession, and you could see that in lots of ways, he added. Housing is starting to roll over, he said. Inventories have exploded. There are layoffs in multiple industries. The Fed is stuck with the position of having to hike interest rates until inflation rolls over, and it struggled to curb inflation. The Federal Reserve increased its key interest rate by 0.75 of a point on Wednesday, the largest bump since 1994. All that is just crap. Whatever they come out and say, oh, the Fed's doing this and doing that to combat inflation. No, the Fed is responsible for inflation. All of this is the result of a debt-based fiat currency. You cannot have, you cannot, it can never be fixed. There's so much debt now, more than there ever was in original value. It can never be paid back. There's nothing they can do to stall it. Paper currency, debt-based currency, always reverts to its intrinsic value, which is zero. Fed's interest rate hike has experts talking about the increased likelihood of the country entering a recession, despite the fact the Fed has been trying to avoid exactly such a painful turn of events. Come on. Come on. But as inflation continues soaring, with the latest data released on Friday showing a four-decade high of 8.6%, well above the 2% target rate of inflation, the U.S. authorities aimed to, the Fed was pushed into making a tough decision. So, the U.S. economy is heading toward complete collapse. We knew this. We've been talking about this forever. It's not something that's new, and it's all par for the course. Moving on, because I want to show you guys something that I meant to bring up yesterday, but I didn't. I forgot to, and I apologize. Alright, here we are at the same website, actually. Scientists have crafted living skin for robots, further blurring the line between human and machine. Keep remembering Klaus Schwab. They are blurring our physical, digital, and biological identities. These robots or artificial intelligent beings will be indistinguishable from real human beings, which is terrifying. Welcome to the New World Order. Technologies are blurring the line between humans and machines. Now scientists are taking the next step, developing human-like skin for robots. Though it sounds like stuff of science fiction, in a study published Thursday in the journal Matter, researchers described how they developed skin tissue for robots that looks and moves just like ours. Quote, "We have shown that living skin tissue can be used as coating material for robots." Shoji Takeuchi, an engineer at the University of Tokyo and lead author of the study, told Insider. The result has the potential to make robots look more human-like. So they're using actual living skin tissue. If that's what I'm reading here, if that's correct, then the next time you become an organ donor, you know they're going to use things like this if you're signed up, right? Because if you look up the largest organ in the body, it's your skin. That's what we were all told in school. That's what they classify it as. So yeah, you might want to look into not being one of those. According to Insider, to craft the skin, the team first submerged a robotic finger in a cylinder filled with a solution of collagen and fibroblasts, two main components that make up skin, the human body's largest organ. Oh, look, I just said that. Using living cells also endows robots with the biological functions of the skin, such as the ability to self-repair and repel water. The research team sees a variety of potential uses for this technology, like helping engineers create more nimble and human-like prosthetics and aiding in the development of cosmetics and pharmaceuticals for skin. According to Takeuchi, the skin is 1.5 millimeters in thickness, or 0.06 inches, and made up of only of epidermis and dermis, top two layers of the skin in the human body. It does not look perfectly like skin, Takeuchi said, adding that it lacks some advanced skin features like sensory neurons, hair follicles, nails, and sweat glands. Quote, "However the robot moves, the skin stretches and contracts, revealing wrinkles. My personal impression is that it is much more realistic than silicone," Takeuchi said. According to him, silicone is currently the preferred material used to craft artificial robotic skin. Robotic experts have been trying to create more human-like robots for years, but they haven't been able to achieve real skin that can conform to uneven surfaces like the body of robots. You have to have the hands of an artisan who can cut and tailor with skill in order to mold flat skin sheets to the contours of three-dimensional machine, Takeuchi told Insider. We established a tissue molding method to directly mold skin tissue surrounding the robot, which resulted in seamless skin coverage on a robotic finger with an uneven surface. Does this stuff make anybody else sick? Reading about this stuff? Does this not seem like it's directly from the pits of hell and that we never should tread in these waters? Because it makes me feel like that. I mean, come on. This is absolutely disgusting. We should not be messing around with things like this. We have gone so far past our intended purpose in this earth. So far past, and we've turned so far away from God. It's not even funny. Still, Takeuchi said developed skin is weaker than natural skin, and because it's living tissue, needs a constant supply of nutrients and waste removal. To that end, Takeuchi and his team plan for their follow-up studies to explore how the tissue can survive for longer, as well as include more sophisticated skin structures like hair follicles and sweat glands. So they're literally going to create a human being. But not a human being, it's going to be some kind of robot. And it literally sounds crazy until you realize that that's where we are at this point in time. And who do you think is funding this stuff? These people just don't get together and say, hey, I want to go ahead and become a scientist and start crafting human-like robots. Here's all of my funds I have to pour into it. Nah, somebody is funding this. And I'm going to find out who. Unless you guys find out first. I might have something else for you guys. I'm not sure. This one's not going to be very long tonight. Okay, here we are over at our favorite, the Communist News Network. CNN. Check this out. Now it's all starting to make sense. It makes so much sense now why they keep pushing this climate change and this and that and whatever, when we know it's geoengineering. Energy experts sound alarm about U.S. electric grid, not designed to withstand the impacts of climate change. Well, of course, as heat ramps up ahead of what forecasters say will be hotter than normal summer. Electricity experts and officials are warning that states may not have enough power to meet demand in the coming months. Many of the nation's grid operators are also not taking climate change into account in their planning, even as extreme weather becomes more frequent and more severe. Let me stop right here for a minute. Maybe if they didn't take out so many coal plants, like they shut down a bunch around here, where I live. My area runs on coal. Everybody around here has wanted to go, they want to go into the coal industry. But they just shut down a bunch of them within the last few years. Sort of makes sense now when you look back, huh? Hindsight being 2020. You look back on it and realize, like, why are they doing this? Now we understand. All of this suggests that more power outages are on the way. Not only this summer, but in the coming years as well. So, autumn, winter time, come on. In the next couple years, of course, they're so far ahead of schedule right now. When 2030 comes, they're going to be set for like 5 years. Not like set for 5 years, like, okay, we're good for 5 years. Like, no, set already. They will already be set for 5 years at that time. As in within the next 3 years or so, maybe 4, at this rate, if nothing changes, they will have achieved their goal. All of them. Power operators in the central U.S. in their summer readiness report have already predicted insufficient firm resources to cover summer peak forecasts. That assessment accounted for historical weather in the latest NOAA outlook that projects for more extreme weather this summer. They have already predicted insufficient firm resources to cover summer peak forecasts. Yeah, so they just decide, like, well, we're not going to have enough energy. It's going to be super hot this summer. Yep, we can see months ahead. But energy experts tell CNN that some power grid operators are not considering how the climate crisis is changing our weather, including more frequent extreme events, and that's a problem if the intent is to build a reliable power grid. It's not the climate crisis that's changing our weather. It is, let's see, the document that I brought up not long ago, Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather by 2025. It's a U.S. Navy document, and it talks about owning and controlling the weather and intensifying storms and all of that and causing extreme droughts and geoengineering and the whole nine. But, I'm done sugarcoating things. I don't care I should care because people rely on me to bring information. People rely on me to talk about things. But I'm getting to a point now where I don't care if all my channels get wiped. I don't care about any of that because we're at a time right now where We can't care about things like this. We can't care that, oh, a YouTube channel is going to get shut down and I won't be able to speak anymore. I need to get this stuff off my chest because it is literally, it's a burden. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Ignorance is truly bliss. I saw a post today from this communist page. It's on social media and it's very unfortunate. And I'm almost fed up with it to where I want to tell you guys the name so you can go over there and you can give them hell. But I'm not that type of person. I don't want to cause that. But they post a lot of divisive material. And they buy into the whole left-right crap. And they are so far extreme left that it's not even funny. They posted a post and it said, when a child is taught critical thinking, somewhere a conspiracy theory has died. And I looked at it and I didn't say a word for like 30 seconds. And I'm like, wait a minute. What was thought to be conspiracy theory 5 years ago is now fact within the last 3 years. Did most of these not come true? Is the Great Reset not happening? Do they not talk about the New World Order every single day? Is there not a food supply chain crisis? Is the dollar not collapsing? Come on. Yeah, some conspiracy theory. This is our real life. Okay, quote, the reality is the electricity system is old, and a lot of the infrastructure was built before we started thinking about climate change, said Romney Webb, researcher at Columbia University, Sabin Center for Climate Change Law. It's not designed to withstand the impacts of climate change. Yeah, I've talked about this before. It's old on purpose, so they can destroy it at a later date when they are ready to bring in their new one, which we are at that point in time now. Even so, come Lord Jesus. That's what I say. It don't even matter really because they lose. In the end, they lose. It's going to get rough for a while. Yeah, it's going to be tough. God gave his only begotten Son. He sent him here to literally die for us. We are going to go through some trials and tribulations. You can't think that you won't. That is naive. We are going to go through it. We have to be tested. Some people out there are like, oh, I'm not going to have to worry about any of this because when the time comes, I'm going to be saved and that's it, and I'm not going to be hurt by anybody. Well, that's just not true. If you actually read Scripture and you actually understood Scripture, you would understand that that is not true. Your physical body, I mean, not your spiritual self, not your soul. Anyway, Webb says many power grid operators use historical weather to make investment decisions rather than the more dire climate projections, simply because they want to avoid the possibility of financial loss for investing in what might happen versus what has already happened. She said it's the wrong approach, and it makes the grid vulnerable. We have seen a reluctance on the part of many utilities to factor climate change into their planning processes because they say the science around climate change is too uncertain, Webb said. The reality is, we know climate change is happening. We know the impact it has in terms of more severe heat waves, hurricanes, drought, and we know that all of those things affect the electricity system, so ignoring those impacts just makes the problems worse. An early heat wave knocked 6 power plants offline in Texas earlier this month. Residents were asked to limit electricity use, keeping thermostats to 78 degrees or higher, and avoid using large appliances at peak times. That's literally what they just did in Ohio. They're asking us to keep ours at like 78 or so. I'd have to go and read the thing again. And to not use certain appliances during certain parts of the day or whatever. Well, the way I look at it, I pay for it. And if I pay for it, I'm going to use as much as I want. Screw you. The Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, in its seasonal reliability report, said the state's power grid is prepared for the summer and has sufficient power for normal summer conditions based on average weather from 2006 to 2020. But NOAA recently released summer outlook forecasts above average temperatures for every county in the nation. We're continuing to design and site facilities based on historical weather patterns that we know in the age of climate change are not a good proxy for future conditions, Webb told CNN. They got a lot of people fooled with this climate change stuff. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault that the weather's all crazy because there's too many people and you're a terrible person and you're using all this stuff and too many people are using too much stuff. That's an actual quote from Ted Turner, by the way, when talking about population control, when he said the United Nations should be the world police force in maintaining population control. But, different story, different time. And people are falling for it. But the more obvious answer and the more obvious conclusion to come to would be that military technology is what's causing all of this extreme weather. It was 110 degrees in Ohio yesterday. Literally, where I live. 110 degrees. In the foothills of the Appalachian. Come on. And we've had tornadoes here like crazy. And I was always told my whole life, we could never have a tornado here. There's too many hills. Well, that seems to be out the window now. Okay, when asked if the agency is creating a blind spot for itself by not accounting for extreme weather predictions, an ERCOT spokesperson told CNN the report uses a scenario approach to illustrate a range of resource adequacy outcomes based on extreme system conditions, including some extreme weather scenarios. North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, regulating authority that oversees the health of the nation's electrical infrastructure, has less optimistic projection. In recent seasonal reliability report, NERC placed Texas at elevated risk for blackouts this summer. It also reported that while much of the nation will have adequate electricity this summer, several markets are at risk of energy emergencies. California grid operators, in its summer reliability report, also based its readiness analysis on the most recent 20 years of historical weather data. The report also notes the assessment does not fully reflect more extreme climate-induced load and supply uncertainties. I mean, come on. Compounding the U.S. power grid supply chain demand problem is drought. NERC tells CNN there's been a 2% less reliable hydropower for the nation's power-producing dams. Add that to the rapid retirement of many coal power plants. I was talking about that a minute ago. In my area, they closed down so many of them. They literally admitted just now, with that sentence, they admitted why there's not enough electricity. The retirement of these coal-powered plants. The agenda is literally flying right at us, right out of this article, and every article that's ever come out. All while nearly everything from toothbrushes to cars are now electrified, energy experts, say adding more renewables into the mix will have the dual impact of cutting climate change, inducing greenhouse gas emissions, but also increasing the nation's power supply. Plan B. One Chicago neighborhood is already making plans for how to keep the lights, air conditioning, and heat on when larger grid fails. In the Bronxville neighborhood, it says when the larger grid fails. It doesn't say if, it says when the larger grid fails. You always got to pay attention to the wording in these articles. Okay, so in the Bronxville neighborhood in the Chicago South Side, solar panels dot rooftop of a public housing complex. A short drive away, a giant battery stores energy from the solar panels, as well as natural gas generators creating microgrid. Illinois-based energy company, Commonwealth Edison, is working with community members to make the neighborhood energy independent. Without power, we're talking about potential life-threatening situations. So this microgrid provides backup to be able to deliver power even when the main grid isn't there, said Paul Pabst, engineer for Commonwealth Edison. The project is pending approval, but once it's operating, the microgrid can connect and share power with the main grid. In the event of a blackout, it can disconnect and operate independently, tapping its stored battery energy to power the homes, police station, and hospital in the area for 4 hours. Yami Newell, is a Bronxville resident and energy advocate. She has seen the cascading effects of unreliable power grid in Chicago, a place that's no stranger to weather-related outages from both extreme cold and extreme heat. Losing power in a heat wave can create a dangerous health situation, and for families on a fixed income, losing all the food in their refrigerator can be financially devastating. And an energy crisis can become a public health crisis, Newell told CNN. It can become a food crisis. Oh, and if they classify this energy crisis as a public health crisis, well, we know the laws that they passed in the last 3 years that gives them a whole bunch of things that they can do under the umbrella of a public health crisis, right? As in shut down the entire world, make everybody wear a mask. That's one of the, but I mean, shut down the entire world, tell you to stay home from your job, kill small business, tell you not to gather, tell you to stay in your house, everything they did in 2020. As communities look for innovative ways to build more resilient, there's a word from Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, right there, resilient. Bronzeville is one possible blueprint. Until states build a more resilient power grid, climate change will force energy companies to continue to take emergency actions, like asking people to limit electricity use, or forced rolling blackouts to manage the grid when supply can't meet demand. And that is the end of this article. So basically what they said there, until states build a more resilient power grid, translation, until states get in line with Agenda 2030 goals, climate change, translation, geoengineering, will force energy companies to continue to take emergency actions, like asking people to limit, more like telling people to limit electricity use, and, not or, forced rolling blackouts to manage the grid when supply can't meet demand, as in tyranny, threat of force, if you don't adopt Agenda 2030 goals. All you gotta do is switch out some words, and it all makes sense. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. I'm planning on doing a live stream this weekend if it doesn't get to 110 degrees. But I do have to go to bed. Unfortunately, I have to work tomorrow. So with that being said, God bless you all, and good night.